So going live now.
All right. So
Going live now.
thank you everyone for being here and coming to our Faces of Physics speaker series. So before we get started, there's definitely a few people that need to be thanked for this series. Right now, we want to thank the West Virginia Space Grant Consortium. They're actually playing a hand in helping to financially sponsor these talks. So we really appreciate that. We always want to thank Marshall University, the College of Science and the Physics Department for all their efforts they do to help support the Society of Physics students. Without their support, we can't do the great things that we want to do, and we really appreciate their help. We also want to thank the American Institute of Physics. They actually helped fund the original speakers in this speaker series. And we definitely want to thank Jackie Sizemore, who's an alumni of the group, and Ellie White, who's continuing to organize all the speaker series right now. She worked very well with Jackie when we started this back in November of 2020, is that right? So we've been doing it for quite some time now, almost going on a year. So it's been a real great experience. So if you're interested in some of the things that you hear tonight in the talk, don't be afraid to reach out to our speaker with additional questions. If you're interested in physics and you're in the area, don't be afraid to reach out to me with any questions that you might have about, a career in physics or majoring in physics here at Marshall. I'm always welcome to talk to students and parents, and there's a lot of information on our website, www.marshall.edu/physics. You'll find out a huge information there. Our department has 10 faculty, 6 are active in research. We have about 9,400 students at Marshall that are undergrads, about 2,800 that are graduate students, I believe. So those might be a little bit outdated numbers now, but that's pretty close to where we're at for Marshall. We just got recently designated as an R2 university for research. So we are a research active university. So we have physics, we have areas of emphasis in applied physics, biophysics, medical physics, medical imaging, and I think that's all of our areas of emphasis combined with our pure physics track. So that gives students 5 tracks to sort of pursue. So I think with that, with all my thanks and information about our physics department, I'd like to introduce Keeisi Caballero and thank her for giving a talk tonight. I'm sure it's going to be wonderful. And I thank her for showing up. And Ellie is going to actually give a more proper introduction about Keeisi. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ellie.
Thank you very much, Dr. McBride. That was a lot of great information there. Yeah, so thank you also to everybody out there for being with us tonight. So as Dr. McBride mentioned, this series has been going on for a long time. So this is our 9th talk so far. So that's super exciting. And I am really looking forward to hearing our current speaker, Keeisi Caballero, tell us about her work at the intersection of physics, astronomy, and entrepreneurship. And I'm sure all of you are looking forward to that too. So I'll be introducing her very soon. But first, I just wanted to mention a few quick points. So after the presentation, just like all the other talks, if you were here, you'll remember that we have a Q&A at the end, and we welcome you to share your questions via the YouTube live chat. You can share them whenever you want. We'll just answer them all at the end. Or you can post your questions on Twitter and just make sure to tag us at MU Physics Club. Also, just wanted to mention, if you enjoyed this presentation, we hope you'll join us for future talks in the series. And we'll be sharing more details about those as they become available. So our November talk will be given by UC Berkeley postdoctoral scholar, Dr. Mark Ruzandana. And in December, we'll be joined by MU Physics graduate Emily Sutherland. More information about both of those talks will be announced soon. So if you'd like to receive email updates about upcoming events, I'll also be sharing a link in the YouTube description where you can go to sign up. All right, so now it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our speaker, Keeisi Caballero. Keeisi Analy Caballero Valdez obtained her Master of Business Administration from the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley in 2019, and a Master of Science in Physics from the same institution in August 2020. She currently serves as Director of Entrepreneurship and Economic Development at Expanding Frontiers, a tech accelerator in South Texas. Throughout her academic career, Ms. Caballero has been part of internships at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and the Houston Technology Center, one of the top 10 business accelerators in the United States. Keeisi was part of the Arecibo Remote Command Center for over 6 years, where she worked with students searching for pulsars and conducting observations using the Arecibo and Green Lake telescopes. And I was actually lucky enough to meet Keeisi several years back at a single-dish observing school in Green Lake, which is really cool. She's also been involved in numerous projects to aid the development of an ecosystem for space exploration and commercialization in South Texas. So we're extremely lucky to have her join us this evening, and I'm honored to hand things over to her right now. So thanks again to all of you for coming, and a huge thanks to Keeisi for making the time to talk about her work with us in the midst of her very busy schedule.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Ellie, and of course, happy to be here with you all. I just want to make sure that you guys can see my slides. And yes, awesome. All right, so thank you. I obviously got the wrong date in there, but I want to tell you all a little bit about me today. As Ellie mentioned, I got a master's of physics and business administration, so I may be a little bit of outside the range of speakers I usually get. I'm going to talk to you about entrepreneurship today and how it intersects with my work that I did in physics back in undergrad and grad school. So I am Director of Entrepreneurship, Operations Analyst, Business Development, and Lead and Co-founder. And those are all my current positions in different companies. So yes, I do keep busy. I like to stay engaged and work in different things. So today I'm gonna try to give you a roadmap of what my journey has been and how did a physicist end up doing, first of all, entrepreneurship and second of all, in space. So let's begin. I want to mention about my origins. So I am Hispanic. I was raised in Mexico across the border from South Texas, which is 1 hour inside Mexico, in a small, very rural town called San Juan. This is a farmer community. We plant Milo if anybody's interested. And then at some point in my life, I decided that even though I was Mexican, I wanted to go to the United States and pursue an education, where I did middle school and high school. Ended up being enrolled in a high school that was an accelerated program, so I finished high school with also my associate's degree. So I did a lot of my core credits there. I didn't have to worry about taking English or things like that when I started my career. So I went straight into what I wanted to do at that point. When I was in high school, I considered my options for what careers to pursue, and one kept popping in my head, and that was aerospace engineering. So I tried to get into the Air Force Academy, and I was actually one of the finalists. I got a congressional nomination, which is something you need to even be considered for this, which is one of our top producing institutions in the Air Force, and I didn't get in. So I ended up being in the finalists, but didn't get accepted. As stubborn as I was, I had not really planned another career alternative. I had applied to limited colleges. So I decided to go to UTRGV. Back then, it was only University of Texas in Brownsville. And one of the strongest departments in this university was the physics department. And I was in between whether should I go into aerospace engineering, regardless if I didn't go into the Air Force, or should I go into another STEM field. It was very difficult for me because I enjoy STEM, of course, but I thought I had a very precise direction for my career, my future, that was not necessarily physics. But one of my professors at that time, I was taking college physics too, and the professor gave me an introduction to a program called ARC. And I'll talk a little bit more about ARC in a second. And this is part of how I ended up meeting Ellie, because we went to a training for one of the radio telescopes together. So I ended up doing physics as my undergrad. And then it was for the first time that I started seeing myself as a scientist. And what did that mean? What did it mean compared to an engineer? Why is engineer and scientist not seen as the same thing when in actuality it is? So I don't know. I started motivating. I started giving presentations to younger kids in high school, tried to get them enrolled in this STEM field. So this part of outreach has always been part of my career. It fills my heart to do it. So I'm very happy to be here, as I was mentioning. In this program, I had the opportunity of controlling the world's largest telescopes known to humankind. So in the left here, we have Green Bank Telescope, which is the largest steerable telescope, radio telescope in the world. And this is the workshop where Ellie and I met. We went to train on how to do observations during this telescope. And then the one on the right was the Arecibo telescope, which is a 305 meter in diameter dish. Just to give you an idea, you could fit 3 football fields and still have space for the bleachers in this telescope. Unfortunately, it failed, had a major failure and collapse last year. It was a real loss for everybody in the radio astronomy community. All 5 of us. I'm just kidding. Like, there's more of us, but for real, it was such a big loss, and we were very sad to see it go. And you may think, okay, you were doing this in South Texas. This telescopes, where are they? Well, this one was in Puerto Rico, so we would connect remotely. This one's in Green Bank, West Virginia. There's now another telescope, which is now the largest one. It's called FAST, and that one's in China. I never learned to operate that one. I graduated before it became fully operational. But why radio telescopes? Why were you doing with these things? Okay, so we were looking for a kind of star that is very exotic. And I don't know how many of you, and I wish I could see your faces so that I can ask you to raise your hand if you know what pulsars are. And if you do, oh, okay, great. And if you don't, here it is, a little small recap. So pulsars are very, very dense stars that are rotating at very precise periods. So we usually, the radio astronomy community uses them for different reasons. The one where I was involved was we were using a network of pulsars to try and track gravitational waves. So we would have a group that was specializing in looking for these stars, and another group timing the stars that were already found. And in my university, we had one of the largest rates of found pulsars from the whole collaboration. And mostly was done by training students at a very young age, undergrad, even high school students, on how to look at these pulsars, pulsar plots, because in radio astronomy, you don't see the nice pictures of the stars. You see a bunch of lines in plots, and you find the beauty in those eventually when you're training up. But anyway, so as part of this community, there was a structure of team leaders and team leadership that was based on, let's teach the student and let the student become the teacher. So we had a whole network of team leaders, and I started, of course, as a student and quickly rose through the ranks until I became the team leader of the whole network of ARC. So we had a program in UTRGV, the university I was at, one at FNM, one in Notre Dame, one in Mexico, and across. We even had at one point West Virginia be part of this network. And I think now it has become another program. And in Bronzeville, we still have the ARC, although we don't have Arecibo anymore. ARC stood for Arecibo Remote Command Center. So anyway, in this experience that I had as a team leader, as a mentor, as a student, I got to travel a lot. I got to go to Washington, like I mentioned, West Virginia. I got to meet a lot of amazing people throughout the years during my undergrad. I met astronauts. This is a Texas astronaut. And then I got to do conferences. So if you're an undergrad right now and you're doing looking for an area of research, look at the conferences that are available. Look where you could go to learn and collaborate and meet amazing people that will always be in your network. I got to go to Paris and present about my research and the work that we were doing. I got to go to South Africa. This in South Africa with the International Pulsar Timing Array Conference, which is an effort to continue to try to detect gravitational waves, and especially low frequency gravitational waves. And then I want to make a point out, because of course it wouldn't be fair to give a whole talk and to not talk about my experience in being a woman in STEM. So as you can see in these pictures, sometimes as a woman you are one of the few ones. And I hope that in bigger universities, that isn't as much as the case as it was for me in a small university, but we're still a minority, and that's okay. Like find your allies, find the people that you can trust and that can mentor you, guide you, regardless of the sex, and see yourself as a scientist and just push forward. Being able to speak my mind has opened a lot of doors. So, for example, here is me. This is Dr. Bernard Harris. He's an astronaut and doctor who has had 2 space missions. We were chatting right before the presentation, and then he pulled me on into the stage with them to be in the panel. And I'm like, oh my God, here is a student doing her master's degree, like working towards a master's degree, sitting next to an astronaut in a panel. Like, how amazing is this? Just because I wasn't afraid of like, oh, let me talk to him. I just spoke to him like from one mind to another, and he liked what he heard in my ideas, and I thought my mind was worth speaking about. So he pulled me to the stage. I also had a lot to thank to my mentor, Dr. Frederick Janet, who is here picture. He has helped me in my career a lot. He has supported when I wanted to pursue different things, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. There was a point where, as many of you, I got into the stage, oh my God, what is physics and what am I doing here? And if you haven't had that one, just wait for it. It comes around senior year when you're writing a thesis. You start questioning your existence and your career choices. And there was a point that I decided to try something else that spin my whole career around, and that was entrepreneurship. And my mentor wasn't afraid of letting me explore this. So he's always been supportive of that, and I gotta be thankful for that. And also here I am at NASA with a group of the scientists that we went to inspect a facility to see how we could construct a similar one in downtown South Texas. So, like I said, build your network of allies. This is Dr. Bernard Harris, the one on the stage. If you have a Google phone, the guy that worked on the operating system, this is one of them, Chris Rand. I had the honor and privilege of talking to him and being able to reach out to him if I needed to. He's a great guy. Here's Dr. Belcher, who was my advisor during one of my internships. Also great guy. Another internship leader that I had mentor, and my undergrad advisor, Dr. Richard Price. If you are into black holes, he has a whole theorem. So yeah, like amazing people that even though I've been a minority as a woman in this field, I haven't been afraid of leaning into my mentors and asking for advice, guidance, and support when I needed to. So that's one of the big takeaways. And of course, support others. I always love seeing other women shine. I love seeing them grow into amazing, confident women. So I like to encourage it and push it. And I like to think of myself as one of them as well, like empowering women. So enough about that. A little bit more about my research. I did an internship at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I was 18 when I went over during the summer, and I worked on visualizing electromagnetic fields and its pedagogical implications. Like, how could we use this in a classroom? This image itself was something that we had never seen. We didn't see how an electric field behaved in the near field, intermediate field. So that was a good experience for me as an undergrad. Then that other internship that I decided that I wanted to pursue was with this Houston Technology Center. This was very different because this is not a lab. Wasn't a physics. This was an internship at a business incubator. And for those of you that are not familiar with a business incubator or accelerator, what it is basically you have an idea that you want to make a business, but let's say you have no idea, like you don't even know how to register, you don't know how to market, you don't know how to sell. Okay, but you have your idea and you think this is worth pursuing. You go to an incubator or an accelerator, and they can help you, give you the tools, get you with a mentor, coach you one-on-one. Okay, this one focused on technologies. So it wasn't so much like, oh, I want to open a restaurant. It was like, I have this invention that I just created in my lab, and now I want to give it a purpose. I want humans to use it. Okay. So as a scientist with very little business background, I walk in here and I hear the beauties of this specific startup that had invented a robot that was able to pick grapevines for wine. And the guy went on and on about the technology implications, the difficulty of the engineering. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And then I look over and all my non-technical folks were falling asleep. Because in business, what they care about is when are you going to make the money and how much? And so I realized it was this whole other language, and being able to set both of my feet on them was very powerful. So I leaned into that. This internship was after my bachelor's. I had just started my master's in physics. So midway my master's in physics, I say, I want an MBA. I want an MBA as well because I like physics, but physics is killing me right now. So maybe let's mix it up. And so I did. I pursued both at the same time. And I started seeing opportunities arise for myself. And more than that, I started seeing an opening in the region for an industry that was about to emerge. And I say good things take time because I've been part of a group that has worked very hard to get SpaceX to go to South Texas. When they first had their first, you know how when they open it up for the community to give presentations, whether they're pro or against companies moving in, some of my team went and dragged the people from SpaceX to our lab, show them like, look, we're working with these things. And SpaceX engineers realized that, oh wow, these students have the capabilities that we're using in our own labs. And so this art team, this part of the university, was this when I was in the university, took an integral part in bringing SpaceX as well as the state and other entities. But we got an agreement to get a building next to their launch pad. So we were part of their groundbreaking registration. And now everybody knows what SpaceX is. Everybody knows what they do now. But a while back here in South Texas, their Starship, where the Starship is, where their launch pad is, looked just like this pile of dirt. That's what all it was. Dirt settling, letting it do its job with a space expander. Then we got to be in the groundbreaking opening. Then we got the opening of the building right next to their launch pad. And then this is me one day deciding that I wanted to see the sunrise in the beach and getting to see them stack together the rocket. So that was pretty impressive, but it's taking time. This has been since my undergrad all the way to grad school. This whole thing has been brewing in my community. And I just been kind of flowing along with it without being really aware, but pursuing a path that is parallel. So that takes me to the main part of my talk. The commercial space industry is taking off. Market reports show that it's going to be more than $1.4 trillion by 2030. That's impressive. And we see it, a lot of you guys see it as, oh, it's just billionaires throwing money at each other. But it's much bigger than that. I don't claim to understand these egos of these people, but the space industry is so much more. Everybody here is being affected by the space industry in one way or another. If you have GPS in your phone, you've been affected. If you have Googled the traffic areas in somewhere, you are using satellite data. There is more to space than traveling to space. There is the space for Earth economy, which accounts for 95% of all the space industry, meaning technologies at one point were designed for space now have uses on Earth, okay? So this has opened up the door because now private companies are pushing for this space area, SpaceX, but more than SpaceX, smaller companies manufacturing that are making this industry bloom. And so what do I do? And how is this relevant, Keeisi? You are here for the Faces of Physics talk. What are you talking about? Okay, so this is where I got merged in. And it's an overlap of my physics background with my passion for entrepreneurship. And I feel like my career, if you take a snapshot of my career right now, it's kind of like the different components of the industry and how to build this ecosystem. And a lot of the work that I am saying here has been founded or created by either the people I work with or have had one-on-one interactions. And the first one's going to be Expanding Frontiers. Expanding Frontiers is where I am Director of Entrepreneurship and Economic Development. That's my full title. Expanding Frontiers is a tech accelerator. So remember, I already told you what an incubator was. The accelerator is like the bigger stage. But in top of doing that, in top of giving the tools for somebody to start their business, we have a program called the Entrepreneur in Residence Apprenticeship Program that I have helped design and run. And this program matches people with technologies done by NASA that are just sitting on their shelves and waiting to be commercialized. And I'll give you an example, one right now. So in this program, not only do you get the tools to create a business, but you kind of get started with the idea. You just need to find a problem to target. And I will explain a little bit more of that process through another company that I am part of. So why is tech accelerators important? Why is Expanding Frontiers important? Well, remember I told you good things take time. So all this time that we have had SpaceX come into we have had other companies come into the region now. And what is good about this? That they attract other companies that are similar. So we have to be ready as a community to embrace this. How do you do that? How do you even go about preparing a community? It's not only about the culture, but it's about the workforce. It's about the infrastructure. It's about the pathways that you allow for an ecosystem to grow naturally. So we have programs at Expanding Frontiers aim for high school students to start introducing them to the STEM careers so that they start learning about space, astronomy, radio, well, specifically radio astronomy, because that's like a big one here in South Texas. But other terms of like satellite communication, all these key ingredients that are going to make the future labor force. And then we have academies, like summer academies. They're 3 weeks intensive where they hear presentations from experts in the field. They get to ask questions. Then we pass them on to like internships. We have internships. And then eventually if they want to be entrepreneurs, we have the ERA program that is the one I run and the one that I'm most behind. So what is my role at Expanding Frontiers, to summarize it? I run the ERA program and I look for ways to engage the community into creating this pipeline of talent. So that's what I do there. Okay, Keeisi, you said this is a snapshot. Well, that takes me to the second one. As I said, there is companies that are called NASA spin-offs. Basically, NASA invented a technology like the GPS satellite, and then somebody else gave it a spin and now makes a profit out of it. There's a bunch of water purification companies that use NASA technology. Why? Because in the International Space Station, you need to be able to purify water. Otherwise, you're going to have to make a lot of trips, and that's very expensive. So that technology has been used to provide water to remote areas here in the world. One of the companies that is doing something similar is Permittivity, a company where I am a business development lead and co-founder of. Permittivity uses a NASA sensor to detect imperfections in fiberglass material. Why is it important? Because this material is what is used to build pipelines and storage tanks like in gas stations. Did you all guys hear when the Gulf of Mexico was on fire a couple months ago? And recently in California, there was a huge spill. Okay, so our technology hopes to solve this. We recently won a challenge from the Bureau of Reclamation to produce a prototype for them. And we have raised over $85,000 in non-dilutive seed funding, meaning we, the owners or the inventors, continue to keep the full rights of the company because we haven't been asking for money from private investors. So that gives us the freedom to develop and design as we wish without having to answer to somebody just yet. So this is part of that ecosystem. This is what I was meaning with space is more than rich people throwing money at each other to go to space. This is a space technology that has now applications on Earth. So this is a space to Earth economy. And this is a perfect example of the ERA program, which I'm leading, which is one of the companies that came out of something like that. So this is like the second aspect. Then eventually there will be other companies. These other companies may be space companies, space-to-space companies. That's fine. This is just one of the examples. So for space companies, my other role, my other hat as operations analyst at Space Ventures. Space Ventures is the planet's first public space investment portal, meaning this one has two layers of complexity, because one, a lot of people sometimes are not familiar with the space industry, and two, sometimes they're not familiar with what crowdfunding is. So crowdfunding is, think of like GoFundMe, but more serious. So basically, Space Ventures has companies that have been pre-vetted by experts in the field. There's still risk and investment. But let's say you want to donate $100. Well, it's not really a donation, because depending on the terms, you get paid back with an interest. But Space Ventures is the first platform that allows individuals like yourselves invest in a space company. Before, you will need $10,000s of dollars. You will need a private investor, a loan, or a capital firm. Now, any individual can. And so we're starting. We now have 3 space companies. And I like to ask people, what if you had the chance to invest in SpaceX before it was SpaceX, right? So this is kind of the idea behind Space Venture. So that feeds into the other component. So if you see my job right now, you see I am in the aspect of preparing the workforce for the companies, creating the companies. Then I'm part of the ecosystem of companies that will eventually employ people to that. And then I'm part of the ecosystem that helps them fund the companies to be successful. So I have my hand in everything right now. And it's been pretty great. It's been a great learning experience. It has been very little sleep in the last few months, but I feel like I've been doing this for a year. I graduated a year ago. I've been doing this for a year, and it has been one of the most rewarding experiences for me, for real. And then what? So then, I don't know. We'll see. So I am planning to keep working for these 3 startups for now. I have a short-term and long-term vision for my career again. I would like to see myself leading a tech company in the future. And then you may be thinking, well, what happened with your physics degree? How is that useful? Well, it's useful because I don't want somebody to come and tell me, oh, I have an anti-gravity machine that will make billions of dollars. And I will be like, oh, sure, let me give you money. Of course, you need to be able to understand the technologies. And it really helps if you have both feet on both ground. So I want to leave with a little bit of advice. And I know that I maybe rambled and gave a lot of information. So I'm open to questions that you may have. But I want to close with 4 things, 3 in this slide and 1 more in the other one. So don't be afraid to grow your network. Like, be mindful with every person that you meet. Take a chance to hear what they do and just connect. Nowadays, it's so easy with social media to stay connected with people. LinkedIn is a professional network. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your Instagram or Facebook, that's okay. Like, grow your network, because you never know who will be a good person to pay, who may be an expert in something. And not only because of that, but because I truly believe the human experience is better if you do it together. So don't be afraid to take on challenges. A lot of these projects that I've done or that I've taken, I have literally just taken by saying yes to something I had no idea how to do, but I knew I would find out as soon as I took it on. And that has been successful. Don't be afraid to try new things. Like, I was pretty set on aerospace engineering, and then I tried physics and it turned out to be great. Then I got tired of physics and I did entrepreneurship, and now I'm in love with both. Like, try new things. You never know when you're gonna find that twist that makes it unique to you. And even if you're afraid, just be afraid, but do it anyway. That's a quote I read in a book recently, and I'm like, why did I never think of that? Just do it, even if you feel afraid. It will come out one way or another. And remember that every mighty oak that exists was once just a little knot that stood its ground. So with that, I do want to say thank you, and you guys can find me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect and continue the conversation with anybody that wants to. Ellie?
Yeah, thank you so much, Keeisi. That was wonderful. I learned a ton, and I'm just super excited by all the stuff that you shared. So thank you very much for that. Yeah, so we actually do have a question already. Let's see what it is. So this is Eli Williamson. He's actually the treasurer of our club. So hi, Eli. Thanks for coming. So he's asking, how does one get involved in these amazing internships that you've been a part of, and what are the benefits of them other than being really cool?
Right. Internships are an excellent way to grow your network, one, and two, gain experience without compromising to do a job for a long time. That's, I think, the best way to describe it. Internships most of the time can be during the summer. There's also fall, semester long, spring or fall. I would recommend starting with the summer ones, especially if you are a freshman in college. Like, start right away, apply for everything that you think may be related, because you, one, learn a lot of cool things, gain in-field experience, and two, get to know if that job that you idolize is actually what it is, you know? Because sometimes we think, oh, this is gonna be great, and once I'm a doctor, this is gonna be so easy, or I'm gonna enjoy this. But the truth is, if you don't like blood, and then you just wait until the last year of med school to find out, that's not going to be fun. So I would say internships are a great experience to just get to know the jobs that you want.
Great. Thank you. Good answer. Okay, then we have another comment here. This is Dina White, her mom. She says, thank you for this very interesting and fantastic talk. Such an exciting background and future. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, so it looks like all the questions for now. If anyone else has any more, please feel free to share them, because we do have a few more minutes here. So give them a couple minutes in case they're kind of frantically typing something up. Yeah, I'll try and think of one myself.
Quick.
Sorry?
I just speak very quick.
Oh, it's wonderful.
So I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for a fantastic talk. I do hope a lot of students pay attention and listen to the advice that you're giving, and getting out there and getting some experience as a student out in the real world too, doing internships and things like that. I mean, it's, I think highly important for students as well. So I appreciate the message.
No. One thing I'll add to that is, even if you don't go out on internships, if at your local university you find a professor that you think their field is very interesting and you want to work with them, approach them. They may have a project or two that they could
Absolutely,
use.
yeah. I mean, we strongly encourage summer research here at Marshall University. So, I mean, I'm always looking for students too. So, but to get the experience too, like you said, if you, you know, find out you don't like blood in the last year of medical school, then that's you know, yeah. So, I mean, some students may have a focus on industry too. So, I mean, you know, get that experience as soon as you can, because there's a lot of physics out in industry too. So maybe the thing you thought you wanted to do isn't what you wanted to use your physics knowledge for. So, yeah, absolutely get out there and get those connections and do those internships.
Cool. So it looks like we have another question here. So this is Eli again. He says, how long have you been interested in physics?
I guess, well, physics has been part of my life, like, constantly since I left high school. I mean, even in high school, right? Like, it's just been, I first fell in love with the math. I think that the math was what kind of was easy to me. And it came from me coming from Mexico. I didn't know English. So the only thing that was the same was the math. Like, I could do math here and over there. It was the same thing. So I kind of like shielded on that and pursued then physics in high school. And then, as I mentioned, instead of aerospace, I pursued physics. So since very young, I would say 15 or 16, I've been interested in physics. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So let's see, I another question. So yeah, so what's your like kind of big picture, kind of long-term, what would you like to see happen? So much has already happened in South Texas, but what's your kind of like long-range vision for what you'd love to see in the future?
Yeah, of course. And that's a big question, but I think I would like to see, and this is an initiative that the city has pushed already, New Space City, Brownsville. It's kind of, you know how Houston is synonymous with space. Like Houston, we have a problem. It's the Apollo. I would like to see something like that in Brownsville. I think that we are an underserved community. We have a lot of poverty demographics here, but we have so much potential and so many good human capital that if the resources and the ecosystem is built here, it could grow to so much more. So I think that's my long-term vision for Texas.
Super exciting. So if we don't have any more questions, I think we've given them plenty of time. So thank you just again so much, Keeisi. This was just fantastic. So much enjoyed learning about your story and what you're continuing to do to kind of promote space and grow your community. So thank you. Just thank you for taking the time to be with us.
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you, and it was nice seeing you again.
Great to see you too. All right.
Thanks again.